Good afternoon, adventurers. Welcome to this issue of John's Dungeon Corner. That's right. Here we are at the Collective in, of course, sunny Altamont Springs, Florida, where it is a nice 67 degrees and sunny. It is perfect weather to be out and about. I'll tell you what, roll down the windows, put on your favorite song, and cruise on down the road. But anyway, let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons, shall we? Yes, we shall. All right, so let's start with a recap of last week. Kind of talked about the new Warlock tiles, Cavern set that came in. Beautiful set. I ended up buying 3 of the Cavern base sets. I bought one of the Stalactite and Stalagmites, and I also bought one of the Dripping Bridges. There was beautiful, beautiful set. We talked about those, but this week we have some really neat stuff from the Warlock tiles, and these are game mats. Now take a look at this. Now this is a game mat. This is called the Expansion Cave, the Expansive Cave. It's a floor mat. It's 2x2, so it's a 24 by 24 inch set. Okay, and it is amazing. Look at Sarah again. Sarah gets another 100 gold pieces for you for being the first one in. Look at that. First is good. How are you? How's St. Thomas? But anyway, Sarah all the way from St. Thomas. That's right. So this is the Cavern Expansive Cave set. It's a nice mat. It's really cool. On one side is the cavern, and underneath it's matted. It's got this non-slip stuff, kind of like the things that they use for the collectible card games for their mats. Same thing. Hello, my love. My wife, as always, is here. Now, Sarah, this is one that you might like. Look at the color on this. These are a subterranean lake. This is a subterranean lake mat set. Okay. Looks really cool. The colors look really neat. I figured Sarah would definitely like this one. It's definitely the sea foam, no doubt about it. Okay. This would be really neat, Sarah, to set up is it sea foam? Well, yes, it is. It's really nice. I thought about you when I saw it. And of course, the magma chamber. Really nice. And like I said, these are 2 feet by 2 feet, 24 inch by 24 inch. It's all squared. Yes, they are square. I have not found out yet. I've been looking for the information to see if they are dry erase friendly. I'm going to say probably not, because they're not a laminated mat, but I'm not sure. You'll have to see them. Okay. Hey, Daniel, how are you? Good. Welcome to the show. We were talking about the different game mats that came in. We have the cave, we have the subterranean lake, which is probably going to be Sarah's favorite, and the magma chamber. Very nice. On the one side, they have the 1 inch tiled squares, and then on the other side, they have a nice sticky, grippy foam, not foam, but the mat underneath it that allows them to kind of like the collectible card game mats so that they don't slide. Are there any open D&D games on Friday night? Friday night is not a D&D night. As far as I know, I'm not good. I believe it is. It's either Flesh and Blood or it is definitely Magic Commander, I believe is what they're playing. But do not quote me on that. I do know that there is a D&D. There are 5 D&D games on Wednesdays. If that's helpful. And anytime that there's not games going on, you're always welcome to come and start a D&D game or play in a D&D game. So there you have that. Saturdays, Sundays, Monday through Friday. They're open 7 days a week, thank goodness. So now, another thing that came in, 2 very cool sets. This here is the Spelunker's Docks. Now, for those of you who don't know what spelunking is, it's cave diving. So what do D&D adventurers do? They cave dive and cavern dive. This is a really nice set. It's how many pieces? Oh my gosh. It's like 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 11. We have 17 pieces here. Here's what they look like. It is really nice. There's also the bounty board of people looking to. That's right. Thank you, sir, for reminding me about that. There is the bounty board, Daniel. And that's people looking to either DM a game or play in one. And it's right out here, right on the other side of this wall. Now, you can't see the wall I'm talking about, but now this is the Spelunker's dock. Very cool. It has a raft. It has a boat. And then it's really nice. It has a boardwalk and a couple rafts, it looks like. Boardwalks and piers fit together in any configuration. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? What's up with the dice? Any of those would help me get higher than a 10? Dan. Don Carlos. All right, well, you know what? Maybe. But we'll talk about the dice in just a second. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Don Carlos. But welcome to the show. Now, this is one that I just had to get. I mean, it was a must. These are the mushroom and pool set for the cave set. Look at that. Very colorful. Oh, let me bring it back a little bit. Turn it up a little bit. Look at that. That is really neat. Really cool. It's got crystals in it. It's got a bunch of different pools and a whole different bunch of mushrooms. Okay, so you got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17 pieces in here. Okay, very nice set. In fact, I'm going to leave that one standing up for the moment. All right, so let's talk about these dice, huh? Well, Don Carlos, baby. These are the new dice that came in from Foam Brain. All right. They're nice and big. I mean, even blind people like me can see them. But they're in green and they're in like a frosty blue. And then, of course, here's a pretty almost tealish set. Tealish, like purple with purple in it. Of course, the purple set in red. Okay. Nice and big. Ooh, nice and heavy. Yes, I know it's DC. Don Carlos is DC. DC is Don Carlos. Welcome to the show, DC. But it says Don Carlos. But I got you. Now, they also got these really cool sets here. Oh, you know what? Let me not kill myself. Ta-da! We've got the Rochrome set. Very pretty. We have a Pink Dreamlike set, which is really cool. All these new sets that have come in. And this one's the Blue Porcelain. Look at that. Blue and white. So it's really nice. And DC, these might help you roll a little better. I don't know. It's always good. I don't have a problem rolling. Let me see what this is. I got a 15 that time. That's all right. 15 might hit. You never know, right? All right. So I wanted to recap about that. And of course, don't forget, you can always ask me questions or topics to talk about at johnsdc2021@gmail.com. So that's johnsdc2021@gmail.com. Send me your questions, your comments, anything you'd like me to discuss on the next show. So before I get into the real meat and drink of what I want to talk about today, because the pink one is Bay. Is that what this says? What? Okay. They're nice. They're all really nice. And there's a bunch more up there. I didn't want to bring them all in here. I fill up the table with nothing but dice. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But dice are not the main topic of today. They are always the daily topic, but they're never the topic of the day. Not today, anyway. So here's a really neat little set of monsters. They're called Idols of the Realms, 2D acrylic miniatures. So sometimes, instead of getting a set and you're not sure what to get, okay, you can use these sets. This is the Boneyard Set 1, and it comes with 15, I believe. Yeah, 15 2D acrylic miniatures. It's a new thing they're coming out with, okay? And here, the box set Boneyard 2 has 12. Okay, so there they are. They're really cool. They're fully painted acrylic little stands. They come with a base. They stand up. I would love a show on how to unlock your creative side with role-playing in the game. All right, well, you know what? Send that in, and we'll talk about it next week, unless somebody else beats you. How's that? That's fair enough? I mean, I know you're my wife and all, but you'll probably be the first one to send me something anyway. But yes, how to unlock someone's creative side with role-playing in the game. Wow. That topic will probably have to carry over a few shows, but we can talk about it, definitely. Send me an email to remind me, because I always look before the show to see if there's anybody who wants to talk about a certain something. Today, there wasn't, but it's funny because I went out eating last week. I already had last week's topic already picked out because of all the neat warlock tiles that had come in, and I really wanted to talk about them. But along those lines, somebody had seen this shirt that I was wearing a bit ago, and it says, it's basically a dragon playing with a bunch of yarn balls. And it says, I need more yarn. Okay? Really cool. And so they said, what does that even mean? Are you like into crocheters? And I said, no. This is a Dungeons and Dragons shirt. And a yarn is another word for a story, for a fable, a yarn. Remind me of the email. Aha. The email is johnsdc2021@gmail.com. johnsdc2021@gmail.com. It's right there. That's right. I'm now making it official and putting it out on mine. Danny's going to set up to where it scans across, so it'll be really cool. So let's talk about yarns. And I'm going to combine it with another subject, which is campaigns. Because everybody hears me always talking about, hey, John, so I hear you talking about all these worlds, and you talk about, like, you have your world that you play with your game at home and use it here and there. But they were in here and they were watching me run one of the games that I was using. I believe it was the Forgotten Realms world at that time. And they said, so what's the difference? I said, well, let me show you. Okay, so everybody knows about the pre-created worlds, okay? Or if you don't, there are pre-created worlds. You're spilling your yarn. Yes, I am. I'm wearing my collective shirt today. Excellent. I think everybody should wear a collective shirt. But so let's talk about some of the older, of course, one of the original ones was Greyhawk. Greyhawk was one of the original worlds that came out where it actually had a beautiful map, full color map that came out. It had a glossary and a gazetteer, which was for information. One was for players, one was for the game master. It held information about the world, important places, all the cities, the types of governments. Very, very neat. And it was only like a paragraph about each country, but it gave a lot of information. Then, I'm not quite sure which worlds came next because so many came out, but you had Dragonlance that came out, Kryn. You have Forgotten Realms, which is famous, beyond famous. There's so many stories and books about that, wow, it's amazing, okay? But Forgotten Realms is one of my favorite worlds, and it has heroes like Dritz Durden, which I've always loved that character, and Brunner and Canterbury and Brunner, Battlehammer, Wolfgar the Barbarian, and Regis the Halfling. So that's the Forgotten Realms, of course, and there's a bunch more worlds that have spun off of that. So getting to that, one of them that I remember back in the day is, of course, Ravenloft. Now, Ravenloft is a campaign setting in Barovia. I like the backdrop. Oh, we're going to talk about that. Hi, Brenna. Oh my gosh, I'm mispronouncing everything today. So Ravenloft is from Barovia. Let me get my names right. Brenna and Barovia, not the same thing. One's a person, the other one's a country. So the Ravenloft is a setting in Barovia. It has to do with Strahd, the vampire lord there, and I'll leave it at that. But they have a whole world set out for this. And if you actually, I will show you this because this is really neat. You know me in pictures, right? So what's Barovia look like? Let's see. This is actually called, by the way, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, because, Van Richten's the guy. He's the man. Now, in the campaign setting, I believe there's a nice map that comes with it. But here we go. I'm just going to kind of show you some pictures. These are some of the countries. Oh, here we go. So let me see if I can. Oh, right there. There we go. Right there. So there goes one of the maps. And it's kind of hard to see over the camera, but there's really neat maps in here. Here's another one of different. Of course, I love the pictures. Love pictures. So there we go. There was another country. This one being Ludendorff. There's Ludendorff, Nickfurtenberg, Schloss Alberger. Yeah, a bunch of them. The sleeves. Anyway, so you get the point. There's a lot of detail inside of that world. Okay, then came Eberron. Well, and this is not in any order of any kind. I'm just kind of going through the books. Then there's Eberron, which is a very interesting world. This book contains information both the dungeon master and the players, such as all the books are. They always have information for both. Sometimes you'll see have new races, new subclasses for characters. You'll have some magical items. This is where the Artificer comes from, in case you're wondering, the Book of Eberron, and it's really neat. Also, another one that comes from there is, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, the Warforged, that my son Antonio plays. He likes playing a Warforged in one of the games. So that came from Eberron. That was the first time they came out from there. Then the latest of the worlds, I don't know if it's so much world, but all of you are, of course, familiar with Critical Role. And that whole group, there's the TV show, the card, and everything. So there's the online. So this is actually the Call of the Netherdeep, and that is set in that world. So the name of that world is, actually, this begins in the Waste of Zorhas. I think I talked about this in the city of Ankh-Harrow on the continent of Marquette. So there you have it. This is the Netherdeep. And this is another one of the worlds that you can now explore and adventure in and run around in with all your adventuring buddies. Now, behind me, hey, William, how are you? Welcome to the show. So behind me, and actually, like I said, there's a lot of different worlds, and not all the worlds are based in our D&D. We're created by D&D. There's a lot of worlds that have come from creators, such as William Samuel Quinton. He has a world also that Gloomhaven, the whole Gloomhaven, there's a whole series of adventures there, and it's really neat. Gloomhaven, no, yes. William, help me out. The name, I think I said it right, but I want to make sure because I got so much stuff running through my head sometimes that it just kind of woo. But there's a lot of different worlds out there. So, and people create their worlds, and some come with maps, and just some are black and white, and some are just kind of scrawled and just, okay, well, there's this country and it has this many cities in it, and these are the people that are important there. Okay, so with me, the campaign that I'm always talking about is this one here. And it's based in the Eldritch Kingdoms. Okay, this is one of the continents of the Eldritch Kingdoms back here. Now I'll kind of bring it up close so you can kind of see it. This map you can actually see pretty well. See, there it is. I've actually showed this to everybody before. You can't really see the names, unfortunately, because they're smaller. But there it is. It's on a canvas. It's actually on a canvas. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe 24 by 30 or something. Okay, so, there we go. Terran Adventures. Loftus and Death comes to Glenfowl. That's it right there. So that's the whole name there, and I have it at home. I've looked it over, and of course, with everything that I look over, I can't remember everything. I'm sorry. But I like to talk about it because it is a very cool, well-detailed world. Campaign setting is what I should say, just like these are. And there's notes for the game master on it. And his is actually, William's campaign is a little bit more elaborate than some because it actually helps you kind of set it up, and it has detailed little maps of the different areas. So it's really cool. The monsters are in there, and it kind of walks you through. It's almost like a little walkthrough for the dungeon master, which is really neat. If you're like a first time dungeon master, sometimes you can be kind of like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Where do I start? You know what? Start out simple. Instead of a whole world design or a whole campaign, just take a piece of paper, just 8.5 by 11. Put a dot, name that dot, and maybe put something like a little mountain range and a forest, and that's all you need. If you want a second village, put a second village somewhere. And start your adventures just like that. And then kind of let the players go out and discover what's going on. And, your first adventure may be into the woods. Maybe you're looking for a lost child or a lost captured merchant. Or maybe it's into the mountain range because there's a goblin camp up there that needs to be taken care of. Or maybe you just have to sit there and escort someone to the next village. There's a lot of things that can happen just in that little area. It doesn't have to be some huge world like back here. And like I said, these are the Eldritch Kingdoms. This is just one continent of 3 that is on the planet, on that chunk of rock. Anyway, and here's the other neat thing, and I've said this before also as far as campaigns go. You can actually link, like you can take all these different worlds and link them all together. The way it works in Dungeons and Dragons, there's the prime material plane, then there's the ethereal plane, then there's the astral plane, and then from there it just kind of branches off into all these, the Elysium and the lawful neutral realm, and the hells and the abyss and this place and the elemental plane of fire, water, earth, and air. Okay, and so on and so on, and through all that, you can in this material plane, you can kind of go out there and end up in, Ravenloft. Although, let me take that back. Ravenloft is a unique exception. Ravenloft can be pretty much accessed from anywhere. Or let me rephrase that. Ravenloft can access you from anywhere. I don't know too many people who actually go looking for Ravenloft, but what happens with Ravenloft is it always starts out with something like this. A mist comes up and envelops your party while you're sleeping. When you wake, you find yourselves in a different land. The stars are different. The sky is different. The atmosphere is different. Welcome to Ravenloft. Anyway, something like that. That was an impromptu, but that's actually what happens pretty much. You're traveling through the woods. You're in a cave. You're on the other side of the world. It does not matter. The mist comes up. It envelops you, and dun, 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 you're in Ravenloft. Now, a place like Eberron, there used to be Spelljammer ships once upon a time. That were really cool. Anyway, we won't get into that, but just suffice to say, there wasn't anywhere you couldn't go at that point. It was a really cool way of linking all the worlds, the Spelljammer ships. Now, here's a neat concept, though. There's spells like Dimension Walk and Gate, and Dimension Door and all that kind of craziness. You can always put a gate into the game that leads you somewhere else. If you really wanted to jump into, let's say your players just want to go and play an adventure. They just want to see what Eberron's like. It'd be so easy to have like a magic circle or a gate that takes you to Eberron, or a summoning, or something crazy would happen in Eberron and created a rift, a dimensional rift, and ta-da, your party's in Eberron. There you go. So you run an adventure in Eberron. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. Maybe they'd like to continue playing. So maybe you can play a couple sessions there, let them level up there, and then come back. And now they have knowledge of Eberron. And that'd be kind of cool. So that's one way of doing it. Same thing with the Netherdeep. You go off, maybe at a higher level or something. You go off and you're somewhere, and you find a circle. And once the last character steps in, it begins to glow. Before anybody can step out of it, blam, you're gone. And you're in the Netherdeep, in the middle of a swamp. Oh, boy. So on and so forth. And even between worlds. So let's say there's 2 or 3 game masters running a joint campaign, which has been done. So let's say that, just for instance, let's say that William and I, and let's say Antonio, he's not here, but we decide we're going to run a campaign together. We all want to play together, but we also want to run at different times, so nobody, one DM does all the game mastering, right? So let's say we start out, in first level, we're going to start out in William's world. So William's the first game master, and Tony and I, and there's maybe 2 or 3 other players, and we're all playing, and we go through Glenfallow, and we get to a certain point. And I think it's like at 3rd level, 4th level, we kind of finish out there. And it took a while to run it. So let's say William wants to take a break. So, okay, boom, you come to my world. He sets it up. You go into a swamp. There's a temple there. And you go through an archway that is actually a gate. And boom, now you're in the Eldritch Kingdoms, in the middle of Dragonar, or in the middle of Candavius. An ancient stone glows, and out of it step out these adventurers. And it's like, what the heck? And you were summoned because they need the heroes from another world, other world heroes to help them with some kind of crisis. Well, and then of course I run the campaign, and now we double their level, and they're like 6th level. So now I'm kind of like, okay, Antonio, it's your turn. So I send them to read to an ancient library to look up. They're trying to get back home is what they're trying to do. So they're trying to read about these gates and this and that and the other. And they're reading, and it says that there's a potential gate in, let's say, down here in Obsidian, in the mountains of Obsidian. So they go down there, and they find the temple, or they find the ruins, and they sit there, and they're reading incantation, and boom. But instead of going back to William's world, they end up in Antonio's world. And now they're adventuring there. And that could be a neat thing where they can run between the different worlds. And these are worlds that have been created by the different game masters. But let's say we want to send them, let's say Andrew. He is actually running Ravenloft. Let's say Andrew wants to try his hand at it, and he comes and he buys the full special edition set of Ravenloft. You don't have to. You can just use the book, the Ravenloft book, but he does, which he did. And he says, hey, I want to run this. All right, no problem. So guess what? As the characters are sleeping one evening, what I just sat there and said, a mist rises up from the ground and envelops you, blah, blah, blah. And ta-da, there you are in Barovia. It's actually that easy. That's the imagination at work, okay? You just have to pretend. That's what all this is anyways, pretend. All right? So it's really that easy to go from one land or from one campaign to another campaign and link them all together. In fact, I've known a couple of game masters, not a lot of them, but a couple who have actually done that. They have actually had 3 or 4 different campaign settings, and they just kind of move the characters around to them. None of their own, just the different Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. Dragonlance, Dragonlance Kryn is a very interesting place. So I'm not going to get into it. It's a land where dragons abound. I'll say that. Thus, Dragonlance. There's knighthoods and all kinds of really cool stuff. And the cool idea, and here's something neat about Dungeons and Dragons. So let's say you did go to Dragonlance and you meet the Knights of the Rose. Okay. Lord Soth was actually from the Knights of the Rose. But in order to look up who Lord Soth is, you look in the Ravenloft and they'll kind of tell you about him a little bit. And so you meet Soth, let's say, for some reason, and you decide, oh my gosh, you for some reason or the other, you decide I'm going to join or not join the Knights of the Rose, but you like the idea. So you go back to your world and you say, why? There's nothing stopping you from creating a Knights of the Rose in that world or a Knights of whatever. Doesn't matter. You can take the ideas. Patrick. Anyway. So there you have it. We can link things. We can create things. We can take ideas from one world and use them in another world. There's no limit to what you can and can't do within a world. You can, at Game Masters, you can create your own races. You can create your own classes. You can take pieces from this one and this one and create something new. That's how all the new classes have come out here and there. People have decided, hey, well, what about if we had this? So now fighters can be Eldritch Knights, and they can be stalwart defenders, and they can be, there's all these schools for the bards that they can go into. All the different domains for the clerics, all the different circles for the druids, so on and so forth. I think it's totems for the barbarian, so on, so forth. And I'm saying that because it goes on and on and on. You just put et cetera, dot, dot, dot. And that just goes on and on and on because it is. That's what Dungeons and Dragons was meant to be. And then I'm going to leave you with this last thought. I always like to go through some of their channels just to kind of see what they're talking about. And I ran this one channel and I was looking at this YouTube interview with one. I can't remember his name. I want to say his name is Jerry or Jeremy or something like that. Like I said, I was just watching it. And I was like, wow, he said some profound things. He works for Wizards of the Coast. He's one of the new creators of Dungeons and Dragons and the guy who puts out, the rules, this, that, and the other. And they were actually talking about something interesting, how they have these rules that are coming out and that there's changes coming out. I think it's called the Sage's Corner or something like that he does. But here's what I'm getting at. So this is one of the guys who actually creates the game. This guy, that's his job, is to work material and new material for Dungeons and Dragons. And he says a lot of the times when someone asks him a question, he's got to be careful of how he answers it because it's like asking a teacher, someone who has a PhD, a question about your doctorate, something in your doctorate field. And he says, I have to be careful how I answer because everybody takes everything that we say here as law. And these are the rules. And this is it. he says, you have to remember that, yes, in the premise of things, when you open the book, yeah, that is the rule. But each game is individual. Eventually, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase. He basically said every game is an individual game run by an individual game master. And sometimes groups adhere to that. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they turn it and they twist it so it fits in with what they're doing. And that's okay. You know, I always say that Gary Gygax first said that, you know, these are not necessarily rules, but guidelines for you and your friends to have fun. He is saying it just not as simplistic as words. Okay. But that's it. You know, Gary Gygax created Dungeons and Dragons. And some people say, oh, we had help. And he did. No one person can do, but he created Dungeons and Dragons. And he sat there and he's basically got the PhD on Dungeons and Dragons. He said, these are guidelines. So don't fret so much about, oh, well, that doesn't match with this. And you know what? Figure out a way to integrate it or don't. But arguing about it and trying to sit there and go back and forth and debate about it, that takes away from the game. It takes away from the game from the other players. So just have fun with it. I've said this before. Just wait till it's over, discuss it with the game master, and then make a decision for the next session. Whatever the game master says, you know, and sometimes I get corrected. I'm not perfect and don't know the rules inside and out. I don't really want to know the rules inside and out because then I become something that I dread, which is a rules lawyer. Yeah, I just have fun with the game. You know what? Sometimes the characters do some crazy stuff, and I let them do it, and they just suffer the consequences. I try to tell them. I always try to tell them, hey, listen, if you do this, there will be consequences. Not sure what they may be, but they may not be good. Oh, okay. Sometimes they don't do it. Sometimes they do it anyway. Sometimes it's a funny consequence. So there you have it. You know, the rules are just guidelines. And if you look for that interview, it's actually out there on YouTube. You can look it up, and that's coming straight from the mouth of one of the creators that are writing and making the rules for Dungeons and Dragons as we speak today. And if not, just remember what Gary said. They're guidelines for you and your friends to have fun. And that's what it's all about. I have fun with my friends and family, my friends here at the collective. You know, I run a game for the staff, and they're having a blast. That's a laugh a minute. I don't even know that. To be honest with you, I don't even think we accomplished much of anything, except like one little scene at a time. But everybody leaves there having had a good time. I mean, sometimes they speak with animals. Sometimes they fall off of horses. You know, they leave bodies to get looted in the middle of the road. But hey, whatever. That's just part of the game. As you can tell, it brings a chuckle to me every once in a while too. And I think any game master will tell you that. I think that there's no real winning and losing in Dungeons and Dragons. If your characters lived, you win. Ask any game master. I think that's half the fun is having a good time. You set up an adventure, you set up a scene, and the players are your actors, and you play everything else. You're the backdrop. You're the monsters. You're the bubbling stream, the erupting mountain, the tree falling in the forest. You do everything else. And you got to love it. You got to have a good time with it, because then if not, it doesn't become fun. And we all know where that goes. So since I don't have much else for you, I mean, that's really, I kind of talked about everything I want to talk about and a little bit more. I think that I'm going to wrap it up for today. It's been a fun show. Thanks for coming out and watching it. Thank you for spending your time with me. I know time is precious. It's the one thing you can't get back. So whatever time you give is always precious. And those who you share it with should be thankful. And I am. Thank you. So without any further ado, may the road always rise up to meet your feet. And may all of your adventures be successful. I'll see you next Friday on John's Dungeon Corner here at the Collective in Altamont Springs, Florida. Take care.